Stand up for public education. We all know that public schools have been maligned, and by our opponents, they have said that we are failing our children, that we are not creative, there's lacking innovation, that our schools are filled with incompetent teachers and leaders and ineffective school boards. Well, I think that early this morning we know that there's clearly a learning curve to be had and accomplished in the legislature. We're going to tell the truth in this session, and we're going to dispel those rumors. And I have a panel of experts here that are going to help us understand, to refute the myths and reframe our story. David said we need to tell our story. So I'm going to let you know who our panelists are. To my right and your left, there is Nora Carr, who is the Chief of Staff for Guilford County. And in the African American community, we would call her the griot. She's a storyteller. Her bio tells you of all the awards that she's received for her brilliance in putting public schools first by telling the truth, telling the story of how students are being educated successfully and excellently in the midst of challenges in Guilford. She serves as the president of the National Schools Public Relations Association and has garnered over 150 state and national awards and recognitions. If you're a school board member and you receive the American School Board Journal every month, Nora has an article in there telling us about how we can better prepare ourselves to tell our stories in our districts. Immediately to her left, again, to my right, is Tony Habit. He is the innovator that brought our school's vision statewide. He is the founding president of the $60 million private and public vision to innovate and transform secondary education here in the state of North Carolina. Our early college high schools, our technology high schools, our engineering high schools, and proudly in Durham, we have a City of Medicine Academy High School, which is linked with Duke University's medical center, rests right there on the campus, provides internships and clear involvement for our students with Duke researchers and Duke physicians. He's brought that kind of innovation to North Carolina. In fact, because he was so innovative, he's been recognized and rewarded by being able to partner not only with government, but with higher education and business, and having us recognized as North Carolina having the most early college high schools in the nation. Tony Hampton. Next to him is David Rees, who is a community activist, community organizer, and a social justice advocate. David is the president and the CEO of the East Durham Children's Initiative, a model of community transformation rooted in education and modeled closely with the Harlem Children's Zone. Now, the difference is that the East Durham Children's Initiative deals with traditional public schools, targeted in a community that has the most uneducated and undereducated, the most unemployed and the most underemployed in Durham. David knows how to partner with not only business, but community, parents, and the Durham Public Schools. These are our truth tellers this morning, and we will begin with each. We know we're the difference. We stand between you and lunch. So we know our panelists will all have 10 minutes each, and you will have great questions to ask them at the end. Our panel. Welcome them.
Well, good morning. I'm Nora Carr. I represent Guilford County Schools, and we're proud of our public schools. We're proud of our public school educators, and we're proud of our community that continues to support public education in the face of a lot of challenges rolling down from Raleigh. I'm going to, not surprisingly, tell you a couple of quick stories that, in my view, illustrate why public education matters, why the work that we do is so critical and so important, and how public schools are succeeding with all kinds of kids. And certainly, all of this contradicts the lie that public schools are failing. Public schools are not failing. I tell people every day that the American dream is alive and well, and it's living in North Carolina's public schools. So let me tell you a couple of stories about innovation and effectiveness and things that we do. In Guilford County, we have a very diverse student body. We have 2 major cities. We have 11 municipalities. We cover more than 600 square miles. We're urban, we're rural, and we're suburban, and everything else in between. And I have to tell you, it's the first time in my life that we ever had to have a lockdown. I've been in education almost 30 years, and it was the first time in my life, shortly after I moved to Guilford County, we had to have a lockdown because some big hogs had escaped a farm and were on the playground and we couldn't get them off. That was a new experience for somebody from St. Louis, let me tell you. So Guilford County has a little bit of everything. In fact, I think of Guilford County as a microcosm of the United States today. We talk about changing demographics. We're there in Guilford County. Our kids come from 95 different countries, and they speak more than 115 different world languages. Diversity isn't something that we do on Taco Tuesday or have a seminar once a year and call it a day. Diversity is something we do every day. I believe strongly that that gives us a competitive advantage. Our kids are working, they're already living in the global society. It's not something that's out there, it's here right now. That's a competitive advantage in business, that's a competitive advantage in every walk of life. So let me tell you the story about Guilford County and why this works. We have more than 50 magnet schools and themes. We have specialized academies. We have large, comprehensive traditional schools. We have smaller settings. We have a school that starts in the evening for kids that need to work during the day to help support their families. We have magnet schools that you'd see in other schools, such as visual and performing arts. And in a little bit, I'll talk about our early and middle colleges. While North Carolina is the national leader in that movement, Guilford County is the national leader within that movement. We opened the first more than a decade ago. On the screen, you see some beautiful children from our visual and performing arts schools. On the left, you see Luke, who's a gifted musician. In the middle, you see Kate, who is a gifted artist. And on the right, you see Tara, who's a gifted singer. Because of a specialized magnet program in a smaller school setting, these kids, who quite frankly, all 3 of them, as beautiful and talented and wonderful as they are, were the proverbial square pegs and round holes in a traditional school. At Weaver Performing Arts Academy, they found a home, they found friends, they were able to build on the very real talents that they had. They embraced the world, they embraced diversity, and the young lady in the middle, you may be able to tell, is sitting in a wheelchair. She has muscular dystrophy. We don't know how long Kate will be with us. Kate could walk in middle school. By high school, she'd lost that ability, but she still had the ability and the great wit and the great ability to communicate through her art. She can speak in only a whisper. Kate, at this wonderful, small, special public school, was named prom queen last year. Kate's in college on an art scholarship. Tara is at the University of North Carolina at Asheville, planning on pre-med, wanting to work with kids who are also square pegs and round holes. Luke is finishing his senior year in one of our high schools, taking advantage of North Carolina's Learn and Earn program, and will graduate from high school with more than 20 hours of community college credit. See, success comes in all sizes, and disabilities sometimes are visible, like Kate's, and sometimes aren't visible, like Luke and Tara's. The thing I love about public education is that we take all kids, and we're the only game in town where all really does mean all. Our kids come and, thank you. Our kids come to us with many struggles. Our free and reduced lunch count has increased. The economy's been tough. High Point has one of the highest rates of hunger in the nation. We have many neighborhoods in our community where there are food deserts, where our kids don't eat if they're not at school. And so we've expanded our breakfast in the classroom thanks to a partnership through the Guilford County Association of Educators and the NEA. I see Elizabeth Foster waving back there. We do a lot of things to try to help kids have the food and the supports that they need, very much like the speaker before, so that they can be successful. We also want our kids, though, to know that they have a place in this world, and that is a place of leadership. And our kids give back. They give back every day. They are incredibly wonderful, generous, giving children. We believe in project-based learning. We believe in service. And we're going to show this quick video clip to give you just a taste of that.
1, 2, 3, lift! Building character is akin to building a house. Both start with a solid foundation. Guilford County Schools students and employees raise the walls on this Habitat for Humanity home. They're also raising awareness of just how important service learning is to the foundation of a student's well-rounded education.
If you get the kids out here and get them working, they can see the value of education. They can see the mathematics built into the system. They can see the humanitarian that you all have to give a little time, even on Saturday morning, 8 o'clock.
This is part of how we'll demonstrate that we're character strong and model that and teach the importance of character strength to our students and our community.
It's the combination of Lincoln service to learn. As soon as the superintendent issued the challenge and the outline of his strategic plan, schools went to work, broadening existing service projects and researching new ways to give back to the community and learn valuable lessons along the way.
We are cutting out cutouts for 25 cents to adopt a sea turtle.
From the youngest,
We harvest and wash our lettuce and our tomatoes that we grow in our garden, and we serve it to all of the parents and children that have to eat it.
through middle school, where these students collected and shipped school supplies to Afghan children. A service learning project at Dudley High School also helped remind participants of the bounty in their lives when compared to the limited resources of less developed countries.
Service learning is making a connection with learning and making a connection to the real world to make it like a live experience.
Once you actually get out and do it, you see how good it feels, and you see how it helps the community.
From monitoring the community's water quality, to socializing with or teaching students from neighboring campuses, to volunteering, reaching out within our schools and to the community, is modeling responsibility, discipline, courage, integrity, and kindness, as well as a host of other character traits that garners respect well beyond the school day.
It's changing the perspective of the way the community views youth, and they're not something that we have to tolerate or deal with, or if they come to us, we're not babysitting them. They truly are able to give back and make a difference.
It's making a difference to the Gone Y family, who now have a new home. The hope is that service learning will make an indelible impression on the thousands of Guilford County school students who've come to realize that education is about far more than math and science, facts and figures. It's about laying a foundation upon which they build a fulfilling life for themselves, while helping to make the world around them a better place.
Service learning is a big part of society today. Giving time, giving resources, and having students to come out, they get a chance to gain leadership skills. They also have the opportunity to understand the importance of key issues, and hopefully that will lead back into the classroom.
When we have this year almost 72,000 acts of service going on in our school district, that's going to impact a community. And if each year when we graduate a class, if upwards of 70% of them continue to provide service in this community, imagine the place we'll be in 5 to 10 years.
And that's the story. And I've got just a couple of quick ones for you, and then my time will be up. As I said, one of the things we take great pride in Guilford County is educating every child. We differentiate and weight our funding so that we're able to support the kids that struggle, the kids that are highly impacted by poverty, the kids with disabilities. This is one of our new schools. We also try to bring the joy back. Special education here, these students are considered medically fragile. They aren't able to get outside and get in the creeks and get in the water and get in the beautiful North Carolina scenery. So the teachers found a way to bring it to them. The creative, wonderful educators and teachers we have found a way to bring it to them. And they did that by bringing in, when it's fall, they bring leaves into the classroom and take a leaf blower and blow them around so the kids get the sense of swirling leaves. In the summer, they bring in pools so that the kids can swim. And one of the reasons that I am so committed to public education, and we have to preserve the values of publication, of where all really means all, is because of kids like this. Because I don't know of any for-profit model that would find these kids worth educating. I don't know any private school in this state that would take these kids and give them the life-transforming experiences that they have in our public schools. And so to close, we advance everybody. We advance everybody from the bottom through the top and across. We have 9 early and middle colleges. We are breaking every barrier that stands between kids and the goal, not just of high school graduation, not just of college or community college completion, not just of a well thought out and well-paying career, which we want them to have. We want them to have jobs that support a family. But we are breaking every barrier that stands between children in a fulfilling and rewarding life. So thank you for what you do. You have wonderful stories to tell. You need to be proud, and you need to tell them every day. Thank you.
Good morning. So you know you're in the right place when you look into the audience, you look around the room, and you see like 3 or 4 of your board members, right? And that's great, because what it also says is that they actually truly believe in the work that you do. And so I'm thrilled. I was thrilled, and I walked in here, and I told one of my board members I was going to give him a shout out. I did not, Mark. You got one. All right. So I'm David Rees, Chief. I'm the president of the East Durham Children's Initiative. And EDCI, as we call it, is happy thoughts. And I want you to think about happy thoughts for a moment. So I'd like for you to indulge me for a little bit. I have a video that I want to show you which will add more to these happy thoughts that I want you to formulate in your mind. But I want you to think about your communities at home. I want you to think about the places that you don't want to go. I want you to think about the schools that maybe you wouldn't want to send your kids to. I want you to think about those communities that have those really, really high crime rates. You know those communities, we drive through them and we lock the doors. I want you to think about the communities that have high substance abuse rates, really high childhood abuse and neglect rates. And then I want you to think about the kids which are back in these communities. And think about, well, one, what does their future hold for them? And then 2, what does the education process for these kids look like? So see, this is where we begin to think about happy thoughts. All right, I know that doesn't sound really happy, right? But don't worry, it gets better. We began to take a look in Durham County at just that. 120 blocks of what was considered the worst part of Durham. Highest rates of childhood abuse and neglect, highest rates of crime, some of the highest poverty rates, highest unemployment rates, 75% rentership rate. Let's invert that. That means there are very, very few homeowners. And then there was this key marker for us, which was the lowest performing school in the district. Now we challenged ourselves. What we said was, well, could we take a community like this with the lowest performing school in the district? I should mention also, these children fed into the lowest performing middle school in the district. They then fed into the lowest performing high school in the district. Could we take this community with these schools, with these kids, and could we walk them along a journey that would start at birth and end at college or career? Now, all the odds said that you're crazy, what are you thinking about? I know you have happy thoughts, but they're just really just that, happy thoughts. But I think this is the beauty of what happens when communities come together. When communities have what I call sort of the perfect storm. When you have the political will, when you have the social will, when you have the education will, and then when you have this community will which says, yes, our children will succeed. We will all be part of this process. And for us, I think this is also the beauty of the public school system. You see, they tried this model, and this model actually happens, and it happens very successfully in New York. And it's called the Harlem Children's Zone. Jeff Kennedy's done a phenomenal job. Almost all of his third graders are reading on grade level. He has 100% graduation rate, 100% college acceptance rate. But he's used the model, which is a charter school model. Well, for us, we said, well, you know, Durham Public Schools offers tremendous opportunities to children. They need to be our largest partner, as we had our gang of four, as we like to call them, our co-founders. You know, we decided that we would be they decided we would be a public school model, and that was what would be best for Durham. Because you see, these happy thoughts weren't just happy thoughts that could happen in Durham, or that could happen in East Durham. Well, they could happen in other parts of Durham. They also could happen in other parts of North Carolina. So we had to look at how we could create a replicatable model. A model that would use high quality, evidence-based, existing resources from within a community and corral them in a micro sense to do all of their good work within geographic areas. See, once we prove this model, we'll pick it up. And we'll take it to West End of Durham. We'll take it to other parts of the state. We'll actually show folks in other parts of our wonderful state, well, how they can do this. You see, because with this model, it doesn't matter. You could be in Terre Haute, Indiana. As long as you have high-quality interventions, as long as you have community which cares, and as long as you have the collective willpower to ensure that your children will have success, we believe this model will work. So I want to stop talking for a little bit. I want to show you a video. I'm not quite sure how to show you the video, but you can?
I got it. Don't worry about it.
Thank you, because we were going to be lost for a minute, all right?
Father's here they are, back to school, ring the bell, brand new shoes, walking blues, climb the fence, books and pens, I can tell that we are gonna be friends.
In 2008, four of us came together and created this vision that we call East Durham Children's Initiative.
The leadership in Durham was very concerned about the dropout rate. A group of us went to Harlem through a program that the Harlem Children's Zone runs for 2.5 days to take a look at how they did what they did. And that was the birth of EDCI.
We were looking for something very similar to what they had done in Harlem, and taking an area that had the most distress.
Some of the highest rates of crime, highest rates of teen pregnancy, highest rates of childhood abuse and neglect.
The most unemployment, the lowest graduation rate, the food desert.
EDCI is Durham's opportunity to change outcomes for kids. It's Durham's opportunity to come together collectively.
Well, here we are, no one else. We walk to school all by ourselves.
EDCI works with teachers, it works with parents, it works with the family, it works with the principal, it works with the community.
We say we're all about the kids. That's our mantra.
Through that lens of focusing on kids, you're able to help the family. Through that lens of focusing on kids, you're able to help the neighborhood.
We're really working with kids from birth to college or career.
There's dirt on our uniforms, from chasing on the answer ones.
We began to focus in our first full year of operation on Y.E. Smith Elementary School, which was the poorest performing elementary school in the Durham public school system.
We're almost like synonymous with one another. So our families, when they hear EDCI, they think of Y.E. Smith, they hear Y.E. Smith, they think of EDCI.
Y.E. Smith is their school family. So whatever happens outside of the school, they know that once they come inside our doors, they're going to be safe,
They're going to be loved, they're going to be cared for, they're going to be supported, and they're going to be challenged.
In partnership with Duke University's Office of Durham and Regional Affairs, we have a kindergarten readiness summer camp called Stepping Stones that reaches out to children who have little or no high-quality pre-K or childcare experience, to bring them into the classroom with their kindergarten teachers, to teach them about sitting on a carpet square and walking in line to the cafeteria.
We actually see a tremendous difference in kids who are ready for kindergarten.
The school went from being one of the lowest performing in the city to being one of the highest growth schools in Durham.
Numbers, letters, learn to spell, nouns and books and show and tell.
We created a position called a parent advocate.
Parent advocates are the link between parent, teacher, and child. Parent advocates visit every home. When you think about this, right, how many teachers of yours have come to your house and just sat and listened to you, listened to your mom, figured out how they can help you, not only academically, but also socially?
Their focus is really on parents and helping parents successfully be engaged in their child's education. Help them know just how important they are in their kids' life.
We don't notice any time.
Now, I let you know this season. EDCI is about changing the face of poverty. And we don't say that too often, right? But that's a reality, because when we have kids who are doing better, and when we have communities which are doing better, well, the face of poverty is now changing.
We have something which is replicatable and scalable.
When we make it work here, we can make it work in any other part of Durham.
There needs to be a South Side initiative. There needs to be a West End initiative.
We can't be successful unless our community is successful. Capital Broadcasting can't be successful unless our community is successful. I personally can't be successful unless our community is successful. So this, to me, is a very good investment with a very clear return on investment. If we can put our hands on kids and we can engage kids, engage families, engage community, help people understand what success can look like for their child, our job's done. Our job is worthwhile. The beauty of Durham is that we can all come together and begin to think about what this can look like with collective effort.
I can tell that we are gonna be friends. Yes, I can tell that we are gonna be friends.
All right, so my time is up. But now I hope you understand the happy thoughts, right? Because these are the happy thoughts. We can look in a world that seems dark, gloomy, seems totally gray, and we can collectively come together as a community, as communities throughout our wonderful state, throughout our wonderful country, and create these happy thoughts. So, thank you so much.
I know most of you right now are having happy thoughts about lunch, and so I'll get right to it. It's an honor to be here with Minnie and David and Nora, great friends who are great leaders for our state and their communities, and honored to be with you all who are committed to exceptional public education in North Carolina. There are a lot of great friends in the audience. I do want to mention, too, Mary Linda Andrews with GlaxoSmithKline and Sam Houston in the back of the room with the North Carolina Science Math Technology Center, both wonderful partners in our work. The organization that I lead is an education, innovation, and transformation agency. We essentially believe that every child deserves to graduate able to provide for themselves, for their families, and for their communities. And the best way to get there is teachers and administrators who are exceptionally well prepared for their work. So for the North Carolina New Schools, we spend our time looking at best practice around the country that are embedded to grow and support teachers and administrators in doing the terrifically challenging work of succeeding with all students. We are distinguished in this work in that we are on any given day of the month or week of the month having a team somewhere around the country looking at what's working and what's working at scale, either in districts or in classrooms or within networks of schools. And approaching the change process a lot like what you heard from David in his keynote address. And in a moment, I'm going to talk about some characteristics associated with success, and every single one of them maps back to the observations that David made. In fact, I visited many of the schools he was talking about in his presentation when I was enrolled at Teachers College, so it's quite exciting to have him here today. Our organization approaches its work highly collaborative in that we are obligated to work deeply with the university system, the community college system, the State Board of Education, and we're very pleased to work with this General Assembly and this governor as we forge a united effort around what does quality look like in North Carolina's public schools. We're very pleased that our work was featured in February in Time magazine, and we are regularly getting the kind of feedback from the U.S. Department of Education that tells us our schools are emerging as some of the best in the nation. In fact, of the 3 high schools in North Carolina selected by the U.S. Department of Education this year for high distinguished awards and blue ribbon schools, all 3 of them are schools that are emerging within our network, and we're very, very honored about that. Certainly, we gauge our success by graduation rates and what students are equipped with in accomplishing conventional measures, but more importantly, we look at our schools designed to purposefully graduate young people with the grit and the kinds of skills and dispositions that we would want to have in our coworkers or in our neighbors. In other words, are schools contributing to the supports that families provide so that schools can graduate young people into adulthood who are really fully prepared for success as fully functioning adults. It's most easy to understand our work in terms of particular models. We do spend a great deal of time studying and observing models that succeed with all students and not some. Some of those schools are focused in science, technology, and engineering and mathematics. Some of them are designed in partnership with colleges and universities. Some of them are conventional schools that have made a deep commitment to change themselves. And increasingly, the work is emerging into middle schools and to elementary schools as well. Essential to all of that, and there's not time to talk about this today because we're on a very tight timetable here with the panel, is focusing on aligned instructional systems. You heard David talk about that in his keynote address. We summarize our aligned instructional assessment systems in the following statement. Every day in every classroom, every child is expected to read, write, think, and talk. Every day in every classroom, every child is expected to read, write, think, and talk. Our supports for teachers and administrators are grounded in the development of those skills across teams of teachers and networks of classrooms and schools. But essential to the core design of any school that we partner with, whether it's at the elementary, middle, or high school or working at the district office, is a set of 6 design principles that are traits that emerge consistently as you look around the country and even around the world at high-performing systems of schools. The first, and you heard David talk about this in his remarks, is personalization. The notion that every child is known as an individual and that every child is supported and engaged deeply as an individual based upon their strengths and gaps, and that the adults in that building rally around those individual needs. That schools, secondly, focus on powerful teaching and learning that engages and motivates students to higher and higher levels of achievement based upon their intrinsic desire to perform at higher levels and based upon the kind of teaching that elicits that sort of a drive. Third, redefining professionalism, that the conventional 20th century notion of teaching is antiquated and irrelevant to these high standards and the expectations of a changing society. Redefining professionalism means how do teachers as teams collaborate with one another, embrace a common language, a common set of tools so that they can support one another in their continued growth, and that redefined professionalism is premised on models from other professions such as what happens in medicine. Fourth, powerful design or purposeful design, that a school or systems of schools are purposefully designed in the use of time and all resources around the commitments that are made within that school for success. Often that involves how staffing is occurred, how the instructional time is protected from things that often erode that instructional time when schools are operating in the conventional model. Fifth is leadership. Again, you heard David talk about that. The notion of leading public education and schools within public education is radically different than it was in the last century, and that focus for us is about instruction and how does a leader support a team of teachers and building the kind of support and climate for growth that is required for this continuous improvement model. Lastly, 6, That is schools who are focused on readiness for college. And for us, when we say readiness for college, that means also readiness for the workplace. So that means blending secondary and post-secondary environments so that the standards and the skills development in the secondary experience are so aligned and integrated with what is required for credentialing and the pursuit of 2- and 4-year degrees beyond high school, that those have to be essentially one very aligned and integrated system. So I'm going to quickly mention a couple of examples of the types of schools and systems that I've been talking about. Minnie already mentioned the Durham City of Medicine Academy. We've really enjoyed working with the Durham Board of Education and the leadership in that community. The City of Medicine Academy is partnering with us and with Duke University Health Systems and GlaxoSmithKline and others to blend curriculum, to rethink assessments, and to prototype assessments that are more aligned with the kinds of skills I was talking about just a few moments ago. We're really pleased with the City of Medicine Academy to broker a conversation between that school and the State Board of Education so there's greater flexibility so that assessment is a part of teaching and learning, not separate and apart from teaching and learning, but the two are built in together. You heard Nora talk about the Guilford County schools. And you saw the clip from Mo Green, the superintendent there. Mo's a great friend. We work closely with that administrative team, and we have, I think, 9 or so different school projects in Guilford County. One of them, I was meeting with the lead teacher in that school last Friday. She told me that in this school there were 650 applicants for 50 slots. And we're finding that across the state in our portfolio of partner schools, that as parents and teachers understand this notion of personalized and individualized learning with peer support for teachers, it's generating a lot of excitement and a lot of interest in how do these concepts scale into conventional schools. I can mention the Wayne School of Engineering down in Wayne County. The Wayne School of Engineering exists on the campus of a conventional high school where people, the teachers and students, are using what's called the engineering design process to teach children problem-solving skills and persistent skills when confronting a problem, how to creatively approach barriers that are often not a part of the formal or informal curriculum in a school. Here on the NC State campus, about a half mile from here, we have a school that we're developing in partnership with the Wake County Public School System, another wonderful system we enjoy working with. That school is a 9-13 school in which students are expected to earn both 2 years of college as well as their 4-year diploma during their 9-13 experience. And when I say that, it's important to remember that the schools that we collaborate with over-enroll high-needs children. So their successes really speak to the kinds of designs and approaches that succeed with all students, not just a certain elite population. So down in Craven County, working with the Marine Corps Air Station and the Craven Community College and Craven County Schools, we've worked to create a regional approach to avionics and aviation that incorporates, I got 30 seconds, I'm going to talk faster, that incorporates things like cybersecurity and how can the needs and requirements of cybersecurity be used to make learning more relevant and enticing for young people. Let me conclude with this. We're very proud to be partnered with over 100 of the state's 115 school systems and almost all of the state's community colleges and the majority of the state's universities in this transformation process. What it comes down to is local leadership that's very committed to this transformation and that recognizes that we have to lift up and grow teachers as teams so that they can accomplish this very, very ambitious work. It's an honor to be here today. If you want to learn more about this, you can visit www.northcarolinanewschools.org. Thank you.
Now we're ready for questions. We have about 15 minutes. Well, let's say 10. Oh my. So you can have 5 minutes to transition.
I have more examples from Guilford County, but I ran out of time.
We had time for my stuff too. That was over 20.
Now I know they're good, but I know that there's some people that may have questions.
That's what happy place is where you find food.
Thank you, all of you. I'd like maybe all of you to answer, but I want to direct it especially to the East Durham Children's Initiatives. And Durham especially has a number of charter schools. So my first question is, how do you relate to and inform public school as an alternative education setting? How do you distinguish EDCI and charter schools, especially in your relationship with the public school? And finally, how do you recruit your teachers, especially given the importance of teachers who live in or near the community in which they teach?
So thank you for your questions, and I'd ask you not to walk away too far because I may have to come back to you actually to repeat one of the other ones. Yeah, don't go too far. Okay. You know, there's public education and public schools, and then there's charter schools, and I don't think we can ignore charter schools. I think charter schools add value at certain places within certain communities. From EDCI, our approach early on has been that we are a public school model. I personally, myself, my board, has been committed to being able to serve every child back within our 120 blocks. What we also recognize is that every child within our 120 blocks will not attend our target elementary school, our target middle, our target high school. They will not attend a public school. And so I think we have to look at strategies which educate or prepare children to walk into the school every day, regardless to which school they attend, ready to learn. And so that also requires us to be extremely creative as we work with charter schools back in our community. We have Maureen Joy. Maureen Joy is diagonally across the street from our office. They're actually closer to our main office than our target elementary school is. For us, we have to embrace, I think, the school itself. I think, and they just opened up, I should mention, they just opened up this school year. The question that was posed to Maureen Joy was, how many kids who live in the zone attend your school? And let's look at how we create interventions which support those children, support their education based off those kids who live back in the zone. Understanding that our very intense academic interventions will be at our target elementary school, Y.E. Smith. So I hope that begins to answer some of the questions. I think it's a challenge. I think it's a challenge not only for us in Durham, but I think for other communities across the state.
And I want to make sure that we're clearly answering your question. EDCI is a program that joins with Durham Public Schools. So EDCI doesn't hire any teachers or recruit any teachers or anything. Durham Public Schools invites EDCI as a partner to work with those schools that we have that are in that distressed area. So David and his capable staff, they have parent advocates within our schools that stay there all day and work with those children, and we provide financial support for EDCI to do that. Durham Public Schools does. So I want to make sure we were clear on that. Does that clear that up a little bit for you?
I think it's a longer conversation, but I'm really intrigued.
Well, ask us. I'll be here with you.
It's just important that the inventions that you have in this school are also help the neighborhood school, so your experiences are also shared with the public school, which often does not happen with the charter school.
Well, what I'm saying is EDCI is merely a program. It is not, they come into the school, so they aren't a school. EDCI is not a school. EDCI is not a school. It is a program, and they're in all 3 of Durham public schools, and really 4. They're in the Southern High School, the Neal Middle School, the Y.E. Smith Elementary School, and the Eastway Elementary School. So no, EDCI is not a school. Okay.
Hi, I'm Lori Wilson. I just want you to comment on how you feel the nature of schooling is changing. To me, I've read a lot about charter schools and all kinds of variations on traditional school. And what I'm sensing is just that more is being required of schools, that the schools that are very successful in underprivileged areas, places where we struggle the most, are the ones where teachers are there from 7 to 5, and they're providing more than just what you might call a traditional education. So talk a little bit about how the very varieties of things you've done can help us to get public schools. It seems like all schools are going to have to go in that direction. So how can we learn from different programs and help the public schools to start to meet those needs as well?
That's a very big question, and a soundbite answer, I tried to pick one out of the list, and a soundbite answer has to do with, we glance over the term personalization, but what personalization means is that there is an intensive and intimate relationship between the adults and the students so that that bond can overcome the inevitable barriers that young people encounter, whether they're at the high end or the low end. And I can't overstate, when you see a team of teachers that have sustained this personalization over a period of time, they have a force working in their favor that didn't exist before. What happens is, in a conventional environment, students feel like they are often pitted against the adults. In a highly personalized and individualized environments, they feel like the adults are their allies. When that power relationship changes, suddenly the energy that was working against the teachers is working for the benefit of the teachers. Now, the downside of that is teachers who have this relationship with their children feel a greater degree of responsibility. It starts to feel like they're literally their own children. And so helping teachers with the extra supports they need so they don't exhaust themselves in trying to succeed with all students. But if I had to pick from the list of 15 or 20 or so things that are relevant to your question, that would probably be at the top of my list.
I would say, echo much of that. However, in Guilford County Schools, we have an array of options. Our approach is that one size doesn't fits all. One size does not fit all. So we have some traditional schools that are very, very successful. We have comprehensive high schools that are very, very successful. And then we have an array of smaller schools and specialized choices. Our strategic plan is really on personalization, interestingly enough. I think so much of it, though, boils down to culture and climate. And one of the real tragedies that we need to turn around in North Carolina is that demoralized teachers cannot inspire children. You have to do your work. Education is an intensely human enterprise. It is psychologically and emotionally draining. It is art and science. It is not just science and quantifiable. And so, that relationship piece, however that happens, requires a lot of time, requires support, requires smaller class sizes, regardless of whether that translates automatically to an increase on a test score. And so until we, get the right measures in place, I think we sometimes end up with wrong-headed solutions. I also think at its heart and soul, it's all about relationships. And I do think the key is getting the community back in, getting parents back in, getting that whole community engagement. That seems to work. And quite honestly, that works whether you're talking at traditional or working with traditionally students who are considered at risk, or the kids that are struggling with affluenza and whose parents are coming in asking teachers to change their grades because they won't get into Harvard. Affluenza has its own set of struggles that we don't have time to go into today either. So if we're really going to advance all children, those who are struggling, those who are coming with the barriers of poverty, to those who are very privileged, but perhaps need just as much support in a different way, it's going to take all of us working together, and we cannot divide and conquer. We need to work together. We need to respect people and treat people in decent relationships and support teachers.
What Nora said, which resonates with me, is this community component. I think we have to look at how we continue to open up schools and allow communities to play an active role back in this process. As I think back to education, we have heroes, and we have heroes who are in schools. Well, part of being the hero is that you can do it yourself, or being, I think, the more efficient hero is to be the hero with the support of the community and those folks within the community that would like to lend a hand or be a part of that change process.
Hi, good morning. Alan Brown, teach in the Department of Education at Wake Forest University, and I run a literacy group at Southwest Guilford in High Point. I want to ask about teacher preparation. What does that look like for the teachers who are teaching in your schools, particularly in these innovative programs? What would you like to see more of?
So our team is on fire about that question, and I'm glad you asked that question. The short answer is that we are advocating with the university system around the preparation of teachers using more of the experiences that are and practices that are associated with the preparation of physicians. And the quality of work that physicians get in their clinical practice is head and shoulders above what we do for our teachers. So, for example, we all watch medical shows, and you know the medical rounds model whereby aspiring physician is presenting the patient and the evidence about the patient and the treatment regimen to his or her peers, and they're getting feedback, and that feedback is useful to grow that physician's knowledge. Well, that same concept, it should be about the core design of how we grow and support teachers, both in their pre-service phase and when they emerge into a cohort of teachers actually practicing in the classroom. There are lots of other changes that are often discussed by our team that need to have happen in the colleges of education, but that's the one that comes out on the top.
We are emphasizing the same types of efforts. We have a lot of close relationships with our local universities. They provide the vast majority of our teachers, and they provide a vast majority of very high-quality teachers. And one of the things that we see happening is that I really anticipate that education, schools of education, the time devoted to becoming a teacher is going to have to extend beyond 4 years. You're not going to be able to get in the kind of practicums and rich sort of one-on-one and small group kind of design and feedback for a traditional 4-year program. We also really are seeing an emerging need. There is specialization with education that's emerging on high-need schools, whether that's a classroom teacher or a principal. It's somewhat akin to, and I used to work in healthcare, but to me it's the difference between a pediatrician or a nurse who's working in a suburban office and seeing generally healthy families and who are able to afford health care, and those who are working in a level 1 trauma center medical school in downtown St. Louis are working in an intensive care unit, specializing in the kidney. The skill set is very, very different. They all have the same base qualification, but the skill set's very, very different. And then ability to work well in some of the most challenging environments we have today. And I would quibble with the earlier speaker who thought it was hardest for just advancing the kids that are already doing well. I'd quibble with that a lot, actually. We're finding that it really takes a different kind of teacher, and it takes a different kind of principal. It's a different kind of skill set. And we have a partnership with the Piedmont Triad Leadership Academy to address that on both the leadership level and as well as the teacher level.
Compensation. 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 If we ask them to stay in school longer, we ask them to do more, we need to compensate our teachers equitably for that. We want to thank this panel for talking about the innovations that we have in North Carolina. The truth tellers. It is now time for lunch.